Hi, I'm Linda Turner, and I decided to do my globalization project on the DeKalb County judicial system and how globalization impacts the law in Georgia's most diverse county. In DeKalb County, there are over 124 different languages spoken, and in large part, it's because the State Department designated DeKalb County safe for asylum in the 90s, and so it had a huge influx of refugees. The current demographic is 53% Black, 29% white, 11% Hispanic, and 8% other. It's projected by 2040 to be 45% Black, 23% Hispanic, 20% white, 12% other. So to start off, I took a trip to Buford Highway on Saturday, this past Saturday, and I went to the city farmers market just to sort of get a sense of the environment. It was hugely diverse. There were foods from all around the world. Many of the signs were not in English, and there were it was pretty crowded, and the people around me, most of them were not speaking English. And so that was a really cool experience to be a minority. And then we went to a Mexican restaurant kind of down the road for dinner, and they had to call someone from the back to take our order because the woman working the register didn't speak English. And so that was kind of a cool experience. Also, there weren't many things on the menu that we recognized from other Mexican restaurants we've been to, sort of more, I guess, Americanized restaurants. But we had our pick from any kind of Asian restaurant to any kind of Mexican restaurant that we could have wanted all along Buford Highway. So that was kind of interesting. And then I had the opportunity to speak with a judge. He's a Superior Court judge, Judge Mark Anthony Scott. He is a friend of a friend. And so I had a phone interview with him on Monday, and he had some really interesting insights for me. He's been 13 years as a judge in DeKalb County, 33 years practicing law. He's also a law professor at St. Leo University, and he's one of 235 Superior Court judges in Georgia. So Judge Scott was really open and honest with me about some of his challenges at being a judge over the last 13 years. And the number one challenge, and he just kind of came right out with this, and it was his personal acceptance of the LGBTQ community and the changing societal norms with that. He said he grew up in a really conservative African American community who's super open-minded about everything except for LGBTQ. And they have a really narrow view of sexuality. And so for him, when he started seeing cases having to do with same-sex couples adopting children, it was really hard for him. But what he has come to appreciate and to really be open-minded about is that these parents are making really loving families. And he said it was really frustrating for him, because he would see heterosexual couples come in and have these awful things that they've done to their children and to each other, and yet there were these good, loving people who are in homosexual relationships who do nothing but provide amazing safe environments for their children. And so he grew personally to accept the LGBT community. So I thought that was pretty cool that he was so open to that and open to sharing that with me. He said another challenge is in dealing with the immigrant population, they have a lot of people from other like third world countries who have no concept of what it is to have rights. And so how do you explain what a right is, because they have to make sure that they understand their rights before they can sentence them or before they can read them their rights or whatever. And he said there a lot of times the translators really struggle because that language would have no word or even concept for rights. And he said, so that makes it really hard to apply the Constitution that's all about our rights to these immigrants who just don't have a concept for it. So I thought that was really fascinating, and it kind of reminded me of Orwell's 1984, when they're trying to redo the language to get rid of words like freedom, because if you don't have a word for freedom, then you have no concept of it. And so that was really interesting to me. And then he talked about a lot of people from other cultures have different core values. So his third challenge is, it's hard when you're dealing with people who, of course, we here in the United States grew up with these core values. And when you're dealing with people who might have very different core values and trying to apply the law to someone who hasn't, say, an eye for an eye mentality, because that's the culture in which they grew up. And he said it's just really hard to help people see that that's just not how we do things here in this country. But he said, but the judges try to be really sensitive to those who have different core values. So I had a great conversation with the judge, and he encouraged me to maybe just go down and take a look at one of the court proceeding. So I did that, and I drove down to DeKalb County over in Decatur, and I walked in. I wasn't really sure where to go. Judge Scott was on vacation, and so he's actually at a conference, but so he wasn't available for me to observe his classroom or his courtroom. So I went to the floor where his courtroom was, and I just walked up to the receptionist and I told her why I was there, and she recommended that I go into Judge Hunter's courtroom because Judge Hunter is entertaining. And so that's what I did, and she was having pretrial hearings. So when I walked in, on my right, there were 7 black male defendants in jumpsuits, orange jumpsuits from the DeKalb County Jail, and 1 black female. And then the other side of the courtroom was like just filled. And so I squeezed in a seat in the very back. And I was a little disappointed when I first walked in. I was like, oh, dang it. It's all sort of people from one race, and where's the diversity? I kind of was just expecting to see a lot more diverse crowd. But the very first case, like, don't judge a book by its cover, Linda, you should know this by now. But the very first case was a Nigerian male who allegedly had or was being charged with slashing the tires of another West African male. And so the issue of his immigration status came up, and he's a green card holder, and and so they actually were going to continue the case the next day because they didn't get the victim to show up today. So the second case, again, was a black male, and he was charged with domestic violence and terroristic threats because he was holding a knife at an apartment complex. And he's from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and his immigration status came up as well. And the judge was really concerned that if he were charged with this terroristic threat, or if he pled guilty to this terroristic threat, took a plea, then his immigration status, green card status, could be revoked and he could be deported. And she asked the both attorneys about it, and the guy's attorney said that he had checked with an immigration lawyer, and that she said it was dicey. And so the judge was like, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to do better than it's dicey for your client. Like, he needs to really understand and know for sure, if he pleads guilty to this, will he be sent back to St. Vincent and the Grenadines? And so they were going to hold that until the afternoon session, so that the attorney had a chance to pull up a certain code and to actually call ICE and figure out, what this guy's options were. But I thought it was really interesting that the judge was really concerned with making sure that the defendant knew that he could be deported, or maybe not. So thought that was really interesting. The third case was black male and black female, both of whom were were U.S. citizens. That was for aggravated armed robbery. They allegedly robbed Papa John's Pizza guy, and at gunpoint. The black male had the gun. And he ended up pleading guilty to aggravated armed robbery. And while he was during sort of the discussions about his plea deal, it came out that he has an IEP for emotional behavioral disorder and a learning disability. And so he's 20 years old. And again, I just made a connection to my classroom because, I teach those kids who have those IEPs, and it just brought back like the school to prison pipeline for me. And it broke my heart that this kid had made this decision and had done this. And he'll be in jail for the next 8 years and on probation for 15 more. So, and then the black female, she was 19 years old. She took a lesser charge, just robbery instead of aggravated armed robbery. And so she'll spend less time in jail. I think it was 4 years. She had huge family support. Like almost the entire courtroom was on the side where I was sitting was her family, like her mom and her sisters and her dad. And she was a high school dropout. And they just kept saying that, this isn't her. This is the first time she'd ever gotten in trouble like this, and that she was already enrolled in a GED program and things like that. And so again, broke my heart. I teach that girl, and that just made me sad. So anyway, to finish off the presentation, the effects of globalization, certainly on DeKalb County, on the judicial system, they're dealing with a lot of the same things that we deal with in our classrooms, as far as people from all over the place, and trying to be sensitive and to understand cultural backgrounds of everyone who comes before these judges, and that the judges are sensitive to that, and that they're very aware of the different identities that people come to court with. So anyway, that's the end of my presentation. I hope you found it as interesting as I did.